Welcome, everyone. This is Heather Whitson. I am an associate professor at Duke, and I'm very honored to be leading one of the cores of the Aging Initiative along with Leah Hanson, who's also on the call and you'll hear more from in a few moments. Also want to thank Chris DeLude and Catherine Anzuoni, who are both on the call, and make these webinars possible for us. So thank you for being here, and we want to give you some information today about the MCC Scholars opportunity. Next slide. So first of all, just a little bit of housekeeping. So your attendee ID helps us sort of interact with you if you're having any issues, technical challenges, or if you have questions. So if you want to be able to find your attendee ID, you can click on the little I circle, which you should see at the top. And then when you would like to give us a question, because we do welcome questions, and we mute the lines just because of the number of registrants. We generally find that the noise feedback is kind of intolerable if we don't do that. But we very much encourage your questions, and that's what this is all about. So please feel free at any time to use the Q&A function. And if you're not seeing the Q&A function, on your right side panel, you can click the little blue dot there, the little blue icon, and the Q&A will allow you to ask us questions. If you're having technical challenges, try to use the chat box, and that will help Chris and Catherine be able to troubleshoot those for you. And just to introduce ourselves again, so this is me and Leah. We are two investigators who do work in the area of multiple chronic conditions and have been with the Aging Initiative for about 6 years now, and we've just finished the inaugural year with the MCC Scholars program. And so we want to tell you a little bit more about this opportunity. Leah is with HealthPartners, part of the Healthcare Systems Research Network, and I am with Duke University, which is affiliated with one of the Pepper Centers. And the Aging Initiative is a collaboration between Pepper Centers and the Healthcare Systems Research Network. All right, Leah, I'll let you take it away.
Hi, this is Leah. Now you recognize my voice. Heather and I are going to be hitting the ball back and forth or passing it. So we're here today to talk about the MCC Scholars program. The purpose of this program is to create a group of emerging leaders who really have a commitment to study issues relevant to the health care of older adults with multiple chronic conditions. The Aging Initiative is selecting up to 8 scholars each year, so this is an annual program, and as Heather mentioned, we're just completing the tail end of our first year of the Scholars program. So the Scholars program provides a scholarship that funds travel and accommodations for a training workshop. This year, the workshop is going to be held on April 1st and 2nd in Bethesda. In addition to that in-person training, over the following year after that initial kickoff in-person meeting, there's going to be a webinar-based career development curriculum, and there's 4 elements or cores to the training that will be received in the program. The first is understanding the significance of multiple chronic condition. The second is resources and tools for people doing research in MCCs. The third core, or 4 legs of the chair, has to do with enabling meaningful patient and caregiver engagement and the role of that in MCC research. And then the fourth is professional leadership development that is applicable to a wide range of investigators. And again, the Scholars Program, our goal really is to foster this national network or community and having a place for mentoring to grow and sustain research in the areas of MCC. Next slide. So most of you on this call are probably here for a reason, but just to take a moment to say, well, why are we focused on multiple chronic conditions? And really, as our population ages, the most common chronic condition experienced by older adults is really the existence of multimorbidity or more than one chronic condition. And the majority of people age 65 and older actually have 2 or more chronic medical conditions. And this becomes an issue. A lot of the research conducted to date excludes people that have MCCs, and when you're studying a disease, really recognizing that it is happening in the context of other chronic conditions is really important in real-world research that can apply to patients and families. When we look at the cost of people with MCCs, we see that the cost of their care is also the highest than others. If you look at the 12% of Medicare beneficiaries that have 6 or more chronic conditions, those 12% account for 43% of total Medicare spending and nearly 70% of post-acute Medicare costs. So it's really a large cost. So understanding what MCC is, how we can best care for these patients, how we can treat disease in the presence of other conditions is of really high importance. Next slide.
So another thing that we wanted to sort of stress was the engagement of patients and families, and as you heard, that is one of the sort of 4 legs of the curriculum, but we also really sort of think of patients and caregivers at the center of all of our missions with the MCC Scholars program, and this kind of lays out what the different missions are. So there is one that is about outcomes and improving clinical and community outcomes for older adults, then certainly facilitating research that is of high value to patients. And then the third sort of mission there on the bottom is this connection or networking between an academic system that has experts studying MCCs and the Health Systems Research Network, which has experts studying MCCs. So growing one's network by sort of linking to both of these kind of powerhouses for research. And then finally, the training and mentoring and didactic training that we're trying to provide through this MCC program. And really, though, at the center of all of that, we try to sort of keep the patient and caregivers front and center. And you'll learn more about how to do that through some training dedicated to patient and caregiver engagement, which we think is really important to MCC research.
So we mentioned that the Scholars Program provides funding for travel to the in-person meeting. It does not provide funding for your time or to pay for your research, but there are many intangible benefits of participating that we wanted to mention. You'll see in these photographs, you'll see this is a photo of our first cohort of scholars that we took at our kickoff meeting. You'll see some of our mentors also in that photo. And then below, a poster session that we had that gave our scholars a chance to interact and present their work. So some of the intangible benefits, so those things that are in addition to funding, are you have the opportunities to have people that are available to do review versions of your grants. There's a great peer interaction. Our scholars have been very engaged, and we've actually had a couple of them start collaborating and working together to move their research forward. We also have a great network both on the Healthcare Systems Research Network side and the Pepper Center side for senior mentorship. And we try to make those connections and links so that you can have mentors sort of on both of those networks if you would like them. Networking opportunities. So this past year, in 2019, our in-person meeting was held at adjacent to the Pepper Center annual meeting. And so that's where the poster session was, and there was a great opportunity to interact with all of those investigators and early career investigators and seniors and really get to know people, find people with similar interests. The NIA representatives also were present, and we were able to have great interactions in workshops with NIA representatives, and they gave real-world advice and answered very specific questions that our scholars had. And so just to mention those things that you can't really put a dollar price on, I guess we would call them priceless. Next slide.
And I think we wanted to sort of hear from, and I believe that they are both on the phone. These are two of our current MCC scholars who are in this inaugural class, and actually both of them we've had some familiarity with because prior to the MCC Scholars program, they were participating in the Aging Initiative, and so they agreed to sort of be on the phone. So we have Talika Garg, who's a urologist with Geisinger Health, and Ali Haydak, who's epidemiologist at Yale. And Talika and Ali, I don't know if either one of you wanted to say a few words or just be available for questions.
A couple things and also be available for questions at the end. I just wanted to say that there are three main things that I really enjoyed about being part of the MCC Scholar cohort. One, that I just had an opportunity to meet a great network of great people who are at similar stage in my career, and it's been really wonderful to talk with other people and brainstorm about how to conduct this kind of research, and about being both a physician, scientist, or a scientist working in this topic area. It's also been a great opportunity to learn from each other, and we've had a couple sessions where we've had an opportunity to teach each other based on some of our experiences, or to ask questions about challenging situations we've encountered in analyzing MCCs. And finally, I think the workshop was really incredible, especially for colleagues on the phone who may be from HCSRN sites. It's a really wonderful opportunity, since it's also part of the Pepper Center meeting, to meet other experts in the field who are also working in academic medical centers. And they have a wonderful mock study section and a great poster session. So there are many opportunities for feedback and engaging new collaborators through the program.
Thanks, Talika. And Ali, I don't know if I see that you're online, but you may be on mute. Okay, we can move on, and if there are questions for Ali, or if Ali has answers to questions, she can do it through the Q&A function if we don't get her line unmuted.
That sounds good. So now we're going to move into some of the nuts and bolts. So who should apply to be a scholar? We have a few details there. So having a MD or PhD or some type of equivalent degree. We're looking for those who have demonstrated a commitment to research in a field relevant to MCCs and or aging. Preference is going to be given to those applicants who are in the earlier stage of their careers. So, for example, those who have not yet received an R01 or tenure, or have attained those milestones only recently. If we want to make sure, if you apply, that you are able to attend the in-person workshop on April 1st and 2nd, and also commit to attending those 6 webinars during the year. And we do try to schedule those at times that everyone is able to attend. They are recorded, so if you aren't able to attend, we do need you to be watching those. We're looking for application from trainees, early stage investigators, and individuals from groups that are underrepresented in research careers. We're looking for people to apply who want to collaborate with others and would really enjoy being part of this network of researchers with a commitment and interest in MCCs. Next slide.
Okay. And I'm seeing a message from Allie that says that she's on the phone, but for some reason we weren't able to hear her, so she's going to work on that. If there are questions, and I'll also remind any others who are on the phone, if questions are occurring to you, please feel free to type those into the Q&A function at any time. Here's, again, just some nuts and bolts about how to apply. So there's an online application. You can see the URL there. And it is we have intentionally made it a very, we hope, easy lift application. You'll have to enter a little bit of institutional and demographic information, an NIH-style biosketch, and then there are short responses that you can type into text fields, so like 400 words or less, and you'll be asked to tell us about your interests and aspirations related to multiple chronic conditions research. So this is where it would be good and helpful to let us know if this is something that a field that you're in but interested in getting this training in, or if you're coming sort of new, if MCC would be a new lens through which to view research that you've already been doing in some other field, or perhaps one single index condition, and explain to us sort of how MCC fits into the work you've done in the past and what you expect to do in the future. Prior accomplishments or evidence of your potential to lead and participate in collaborations, whether or not they had anything to do with MCC. Is important because, again, one of the things that we're really trying to stimulate here is a network and potential collaborations. And then finally, your goals for participating in the program.
Heather, can you hear me? This is Allie.
Yes. Oh, hey, Allie.
Wonderful.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
You.
I don't mean to cut in, but I thought I would just build on one of the descriptions that you talked about in the application. So I'm Allie Hyduke, and I'm so sorry. I was having some technical difficulties. I think with Cisco. I think I was muted in Cisco, and I kept trying to unmute my phone. And never mind. My apologies for that. So just in terms of your interests and aspirations related to MCC research, one thing that Heather mentioned was that you don't necessarily need to be currently doing MCC research in order to apply. And I really just wanted to, on top of echoing Talika's comments about how great the program is, I want to reach out to folks who may just be interested in MCC's research but not necessarily engaging at this point, because I think I was one of these people about 5 years ago, and doing MCC's research can be pretty scary. It's it's still a little bit of a wild, wild west out there in terms of defining MCCs and operationalizing, and so it can be a little bit intimidating. And two things that I've really gotten from the Scholars program this year has been, first, camaraderie in thinking about ways to operationalize MCCs, which is not always natural, especially for non-clinicians such as myself. But also the camaraderie of knowing that, this is hard work and it's an evolving field. And so it's great to have peers and potential collaborators who are right there in the trenches with you and trying to figure out these very complex issues. So if you're new to the field, I would especially encourage you to apply. Okay.
Thanks, Allie. Thank you. No, glad you broke in. Thank you. I'm glad we figured out the mute issue.
So we wanted to share a little bit about the review process. And how we select the applicants. The selections are going to be based on the evidence of commitment to or interest in research relevant to MCCs, and of course that's going to be appropriate to where you are in the stage of your career. We also are keeping in mind that we want to create a cohort that's balanced of 8 investigators, so we're looking for complementary expertise, different perspectives, so know that that's also taken into account. So in terms of the review, each candidate's application is assigned to 2 reviewers, one reviewer associated with the Healthcare Systems Research Network and one with the Pepper Center Network. The reviewers are scoring 4 of the sections of the application. So they're scoring your biosketch, the interest and aspiration section, the evidence of the collaborative potential, and then also your goals. And those are scored on a scale of 1 to 5, from unsatisfactory to outstanding. And then in addition to those 4 areas, there is a 1 overall score on the same scale that's given for sort of the overall applicant score. And the next slide.
And the applications are due December 2nd, and we will notify the scholars by January 15th. And hopefully, again, we're asking that if you apply, please hold those dates, April 1st and 2nd, on your calendar so that you can join us for that sort of kickoff meeting. And we will let you know by January 15th, and that should give plenty of time to do travel arrangements. And with that, I think, actually, is there a little bit more information? And then, and again, if you have questions, feel free to type those in.
So there's a lot of information about the Aging Initiative online, so you can see the website is there. And then also, if you have questions about applying, Chris is a great resource, and he can get your question to the right person. So any question, there's no silly questions. We want to hear from you and to help you move your application forward.
Oh, yeah. So we have a few frequently asked questions here. So one, does my research have to be about older adults or aging? And importantly, it does not. So we certainly recognize that the largest population of older adults, the largest population of people with MCCs are older adults. But we're really looking at promoting the study of MCCs. And so we recognize that multiple chronic conditions even exist in diseases of youth that might be considered serious or genetic conditions of younger people often have MCCs. And so we would welcome applications from people studying MCCs other than age-related. Another question, I will be receiving my PhD a few months after the application due date. Can I still apply? So in order to kind of keep internal consistency with everyone and kind of a level playing field, we are going to stick to the degree requirements, and the degree must be granted before the application is due. But we look for a cohort annually, and so we would absolutely encourage people to apply the next year if they don't quite have their doctorate earned by the time that applications are due this year. International researchers, yes. So we can accept international applicants. And if you do have further inquiries about that, we refer you to Chris. And then another important question is, if you applied for the program last year and were not accepted, does that count against you? And and it absolutely does not count against you. So we wanted to make it really clear to people that last year we really were blessed to receive many more meritorious applications than we had positions to offer, and we really are hoping to receive repeat applicants. And again, I'll stress here that the decisions last year in part reflected wanting to have each cadre have some diversity in terms of the people that were included in each year so that they could learn from each other in terms of different disciplines, people who were from HCSRN and some from Pepper Centers and being from different institutions in different geographic regions of the country and interested in different topics. So some of the decisions last year really were driven by factors not at all related to the merit of the application. So we really do hope and encourage you to apply again. And there is a full frequently asked questions list on the website with the link there. And now we're open to questions. So we'll give a little bit of time for people to type if they have any questions.
And I think we're a small enough group, so if you look on the participants panel, there's a icon shaped like a hand. So if you want to raise your hand by clicking that, or by putting a a message in to the Q&A, and then I think we can get Chris to unmute your line if you'd like to ask your question verbally. But we will take both verbal and text questions. I don't see any coming through. Chris, do you see any on your end, or Heather?
Yep. So I have one from Marlon Aliberti. I've unmuted your line, so if you are able to chat, feel free to. But they asked, could you explain potential activities for the year after the program?
Sure. And if you're referring to, so there's the kickoff meeting that's in person, and then there's a year following that where there are webinars, and we try to make those webinars as interactive as possible, so that even though we're not in the same room together, most of us are using video technology so that we're actually seeing each other and kind of having a conversation, and that goes on through the year. But if the question is about what happens in the year after that, so one thing that we've been telling people is once an MCC Scholar, always an MCC Scholar. So you continue to be invited to come back and participate in the webinars in the year after your MCC year. And then in addition, there's the opportunities always to sort of leverage the networks and the connections that you've made to hopefully pursue collaborations together. And one of the things that you know, you get as well is sort of tapped into the newsletters, which of course any of you can do now, get on our listserv to receive the Aging Initiative newsletters. But those may be more meaningful or of interest when you've sort of met some of the players and hear about some of the other webinars, funding opportunities, updates, and things like that. And then, of course, national meetings always present another opportunity for people to get together in person. I don't know if anyone else, and maybe either Talika or Allie, want to comment about anything that you anticipate in the coming future years after your sort of year as an MCC Scholar that you might continue to have kind of a ripple effect of this year.
This is Talika. I could envision us writing maybe some collaborative papers coming out of some of our discussions from our teaching each other webinars. And I think there's already been some collaboration developing between some of our scholar class, which I could see either continuing or expanding to a larger cohort, and especially with having, with each class that forms will have a larger community of people who are at similar stages who can continue to work together to advance the field in terms of techniques and papers, grants, and really changing the field going forward.
Yeah, this is Allie, and I agree completely with Talika. I also think I could see collaborating with my fellow MCC Scholars, in the long term. I know that many of us are in the career development stage right now, but some of us are thinking or starting to transition to, the middle stage of our careers with, larger grants, multi-site grants. So I would probably think that moving forward, we may not just be writing papers together and such, but we may be tapping each other to potentially be sites for multi-site studies, because there's that foundational understanding of the work that we each do and the work that we're trying to do together. So I think that might be another future opportunity for all of us to stay together as a cohort.
And this is Leah. I know we tried to keep the time commitment low throughout the year because we're not funding your time with the program, so that's why we've limited to these webinar interactions. But really your participation, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. And over the last year, we have featured several of our scholars in our newsletter to just help get people out there, get exposure to the community. We've had some of our scholars participate with partners to do educational webinars, again, to be able to share your experience and educate, but also have that exposure and connection to experts in the field that you might not have already known. So really view it as much as you want to put into it and leverage those networks you're connected to. There's quite a large range of possibilities.
And it looks like we received one more question. Someone mentioned previously operationalizing multiple chronic conditions. So they just asked what efforts have been made towards this process, and has there been a consensus?
So I would say there's not a consensus, but there are sort of constant and ongoing efforts toward operationalizing. And I think one thing that we've talked a lot about is sort of fit for purpose, that sometimes rather than that there will ever be, the one gold standard tool that you should always be using for multiple chronic conditions, a lot of it depends on what you're trying to predict or what you're trying to measure. So we've talked a lot about the sort of different fit for purpose tools and options that are out there. Others have thoughts about that question?
It's a hard question. I think you answered it well. I don't have anything to add.
Again, I think one of the things that we talk a lot about, and one of the challenges of doing this kind of research, is that it is such a heterogeneous population. And you've seen one patient with multiple chronic conditions, you've seen one patient with multiple chronic conditions, because the cluster of conditions and the different severity of the different conditions really kind of determines, and yet we know that it is worth picking the best tool that we can to operationalize, because it's such a significant issue. And so I think a lot of what we've discussed actually is the range of options, more than trying to push that one tool is always the right one to use.
I haven't seen any new questions come in, so if anyone else has any last-minute thoughts, please feel free to ask us in the chat.
And also, we've given you some good contact information in addition to reaching out to Chris. I'll say it's so I'm happy to receive emails from anyone who's interested. And I do hope that we'll see applications from those who are on the call. Thank you so much for your time and interest today.
We're really glad you all joined us, and we will be posting the recording, I believe. Is that right, Chris, of the informational webinar, if you would like to listen to it again or share it with others?
Yep, that and our FAQ and RFA will be up on our Aging Initiative website. So, yep, just feel free to check that out, and you'll get more information there.
Thanks, everybody.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Thanks.
Thank you.